Welcome to the MBD podcast, the show where we dig into what's actually working or not when it comes to scaling businesses. And our guest today has definitely scaled some video games. So I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell them what you've done, where you're at.
Sure, yeah. Jason, good to see you. Good to see you again. Garrett, my name's Garrett Young. I've been making games for over 20 years now. Um, done very large games for very large companies like Microsoft and Activision and Disney, where you and I work together. Also for id Software, owned by a company called ZeniMax, now backed by Microsoft. I've worked with some great people and great teams on some very big IP, which we can talk about as time permits, and built those games, worked with great teams to build games, and then we had the efforts and the work that we did to build a community around those games.
Got it. So now, a lot of people, a lot of kids, I know my nephew, they're wanting to build games, but I think there's some key components that they're not even aware that needs to go into it. So you have this idea for a game, you start building out. What are things that go into it outside of just building the game that need to start happening, at least strategizing, so that way there's a path to start getting some awareness and interest in
Yeah, so it's a good question, not a short question, but
it?
but yeah, that's it's games can kind of start from two sources. A new game. One, it can start from a new idea, right? Someone has a new idea about doing something completely brand new to give to players, whether it's something that they like or a crazy idea that they have, combining two things, chocolate and peanut butter, if you will, from consumer products, as an example. Or it comes from seeing a market that may be underserved or not served at all, and defining the kind of game you want to build for it. What your nephew might not understand is the effort that goes into making a game. It depends on the size
Mhm.
of the game, right? A mobile game is going to be a little bit smaller, depending on. There are very large mobile games, but you can build with a pretty small team. Build mobile games. You can build we call them indie games. You can build those with very small teams, especially now that the tools are getting so much better. All the off-the-shelf tools that we can use, and we wouldn't even talk about AI and all the things that Gen AI and LLMs and other new AI tools that are coming out every month that support us and help us as game developers. But building that idea and bringing it to life and bringing it to market, a lot that goes into that. But if I big picture this, you start with your idea, you build a team around it. It can be a very small team, it can be a very large team. The teams that I worked with when I had 5 teams across 3 studios when you and I were at Disney together. Those teams development teams themselves got up to probably 150 people at the peak. And
Mhm.
then we also had a marketing and publishing side team that was at least 50 people. So it's a large effort. Call it at that time about a 2 to 3 year cycle. Most, and those are AAA games. I
Mhm.
mentioned indie games, but the scales all the way from kind of a indie game can be a one person team or a very small team, all the way up to like we're talking about 200, 300 or more. The last Assassin's Creed probably had over 700 developers on it,
Wow.
and then another couple of hundred publishing side, marketing and sales and localization and QA and everything that goes into bringing the game to market. Um, if we think about a game, just think about timing for a second. If it's, say, a 3 year cycle, your game development takes that long to kind of get to a 1.0 launch. You typically kick off your efforts to build community maybe halfway through that, and then that really ramps up over time, so that at launch, this isn't Field of Dreams, right? Oh, if we
Mm.
build it, they will come. No, that's not how it works. I'm not sure that's ever worked that way in games. Maybe it did back in the early '90s, or maybe the very first Doom, because that game was so amazing and they did so many interesting things, from a distribution standpoint, about thinking about going to market, but also just from a rendering standpoint. They were doing things on PC that had not been done before.
Mhm.
But anyway, we're in our current game. So I work with 26, 27 of my closest friends on a game called Defect at our new company called Empty Vessel. We just kicked it off about a year and a half ago. We started this up. This is all, we talk about the source of a where does a game idea come from, or how does a kind of game get started. This is an idea that a friend of mine had. Um, to build a game in a world that was a very interesting world, and to put a game mechanic in there that we thought would be very fun for players. We've and I know kind of your podcast and our time here is more spent on kind of going to market and building community. How we started to communicate about with players, with an audience, with potential future players. How we started that was, we're here in August right now of 2025. A year and a half ago, we announced the studio. That's just a press release. It's just kind of a really quick blip on the radar, but you start to you start to see the market just a little bit. We got, I don't know, 30 or 40,000 views on our musicians Twitter feed. We had a little bit, just a 60-second GIF of what the world kind of was. We're building this brand new world, and so we got some good views and a little bit of traction with that. We then built a trailer. Oh man, that was actually a shorter GIF, maybe a 10-second GIF. Can't remember. It was a while ago, year and a half ago. But then we built a longer trailer that was a minute long. It was 45, 50 seconds of kind of lead up to it, and then 10 seconds of gameplay, which is hard for us to build because we're in the middle of building the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've built the team, we're building the game. And so getting the assets to look in a finished state well before the game is finished is a challenge for us as game developers. But we did that because we want to start, we don't want to just kind of build the game and then no one knows about it, right? So we want to start building community well before we launch the game. And so that did really well. We ended up getting I think there was like 1.9 million views in the first 3 days of seeing that game announced trailer, where we actually announced the name and announced the game, and we didn't get into a laundry list of features. That's not, I think, the best path to success as far as communicating to potential customers and potential players about what the world is. But we just wanted to give a sense of the tone of the world, which is, I think we had success with that a year ago. When we released that to YouTube, just did a tiny amount of spend to promote that, and now we are working. 90% of our time right now is working towards building the game, and 5 to 10% is working and planning our next big beat. Which for most games, they'll do a gameplay reveal. We did the game announce, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And now the gameplay reveal is more like a 5 to 6 minute clip of video, a video of the game and a trailer. And that gets into much more, hands-on gameplay where it's a multiplayer game. It's a PvP shooter we announced last year. And so now we'll show more gameplay when we do our game reveal trailer. So that may be more information that you were looking for there, but kind of
no. So I'm compiling it in my mind. Is that it sounds like to start building a community, essentially there's some steps to it. One, you do it at least a year out. It sounds like. Two, you kind of tease it, right? How do those initial teasing steps work? How do you find communities to gain the initial interest?
It's a good question. We seed it. We start seeding it a year and a half out. In this case, maybe it's a bit or further out. We haven't announced our dates or anything as far as ship dates go. But in our world, in the world of games, and specifically, I've kind of worked on large games. And let's talk about a new IP, because sequels are a little bit different. You've already established what the world is and what the game is, and you've built trust with players, and assuming you've built a really good game. Yeah. So gamers already know about it in the context of a sequel, right? So you do things a little bit differently there. Gamers have their appetite already kind of whetted for it if they like the last game. This game right here is from a franchise that we just rebooted. Doom was done by id Software back in the early 90s, and we did something that we just called Doom. Internally, we always call it Doom 2016, but that has kicked off at id 2016, and then 2021 was Doom Eternal, and then just this year was Dark Ages. And so that was a little bit different. We'd already had kind of a built-in audience. How you speak to them and reboot the franchise in their eyes, and then continue that trend is a little bit different. But we're building a new IP here, new intellectual property with Defect, and so we are seeding information about the game and about the world early, very small, like I just talked about, and then those seeds will get bigger and bigger, And maybe a better way to extend that metaphor is to say that seed will start to grow, and grow into a large tree and hopefully blossom into a great knowledge about what the game is, and specifically what the world is. We really, again, it starts very high level about what this world is.
Mm-hmm.
What am I what am I getting into as a player? Is it a sci-fi world? Is it a game set in the past? Is it a game set in the future? Is it what is the setting? It's kind of how we start, kind of a high level, which we've just started doing that. We'll do more of that in the future. And then we get a little bit more narrow about, okay, who am I in that world, right? Because it's an interactive medium. It's not a movie. It's not a song. It's not a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may follow a protagonist over the course of the story arc in a book or in a movie, certainly TV show, etc. In this case, you are hands-on controller, right? And you are hands-on keyboard, and you are playing a character, or you are playing, air quotes, yourself, and how you want to play that game. So we'll start big with what the world is. In our case, as we showed last year, it is a dystopian sci-fi future
Mm-hmm.
that we are creating in this world of Defect. And then we'll get more narrow over the course of moving the way towards launch. Kind of two kind of threads I'll tell you about. Get more narrow, and we'll talk about, okay, this is kind of who you are, or who you play, or the character you can inhabit, if you will, as you play in this game. And then we'll get more into specifics of, this is what you do in the game. This is what your challenge is, or what the puzzle, what the problem you're trying to solve, or the competition. In our case, this is a competitive game. This is what you do in the game. These are the tools at your disposal in the game. Our game is a shooter, as we've announced. Shooting is involved in this game. There is more to the game than shooting, which we'll announce as part of, like we're talking about, going to market and growing our community, sharing more knowledge about the community, getting players on board, also hearing their feedback, which is the second thing I'll talk about in a second. But anyway, so we start big. What's the world? And then we kind of narrow into, okay, who am I? What do I play? What are the challenges in this game? What are the abilities that I have going forward? And so we'll do more of that over the course of the next beats. And then the other thing that we do to build community in games, the other big thing that we have the unique ability to do now, we didn't have this in the 90s. We didn't have this nearly as much 20 years ago. We started to have this a little bit 15 years ago in our industry, is we put the game in front of players, right? Not just in sharing a trailer with them, but we get them in, bring them into the process. So we have not created our and announced our Discord yet. We will have a Discord like most games they do. And so that's a way we can get feedback from players directly, more kind of in a conversational way, and with their thoughts and their feedback, and we could do surveys, etc. But we will do what a lot of games do. Battlefield 6 is a great game coming out from EA very soon. I mentioned that because they just did I don't know what they call it, an alpha or a beta weekend. I think they called it a beta weekend. Last weekend, they're doing another one this coming weekend. We'll do the same thing. We'll do a very similar thing. And the great thing about that is you're playing a finished game. There will be bugs because it's not actually a finished game, but you're playing what feels a small slice of what feels like a finished game. And I'm sure the EA guys and the DICE guys doing Battlefield 6 are getting a lot of feedback from players, not just anecdotal feedback, but also data as they track how players play the game.
Mm-hmm.
We will do the same thing. And that's something that we have the ability to do in the games industry, but also new technologies have allowed us new methods of distribution of our games, and direct relationships that we have with players, whether it's through Steam, whether it's through the Epic Game Store, and through our tools that we will use to track feedback about how they're playing the game. Simple examples are, what are any of the guns OP? Are any of the certain abilities OP, overpowered? Do we need to do some tuning there? That's kind of a simple and obvious one. when you think about character, if you were doing a hero shooter like an Overwatch, you'd want to understand which of those characters might be more powerful, which of the characters players are playing the most. Could be because they're overpowerful, or could be because there's the movement through the space is more fun and more interesting, more engaging. Could be because it's just visually the character is more compelling. Lots of different reasons, but getting the data is the first thing for us, is kind of the biggest reason that we do these open alphas, public alphas and public betas. And it allows us to improve our experience, improve the player experience in our world and with our systems before a full launch. So we get great feedback there, and it's all towards building a high quality game and high quality products, our products being a game. We are, as you well know this from your experience at Disney, and this is true for movies, etc. also, but we are a hits driven business. If you don't make a high quality experience, you will lose your audience, you will lose players. And they're very rarely do they give you a second chance, right? So you got one chance to make a first impression. So that is two parts to how we go to market with games. Just thinking about very high level.
Mm-hmm.
One is a bit of a, I can call it standard, but books do this and movies do this, and their timelines may be different than ours. But where we kind of seed our audience and tell them what the world is and more about the game is, and kind of get to embody in this game as an interactive medium, right? We're connected deeper with the player that way. But then the other side is we want to make this game great for players, and so we get their feedback early on. We bring them on board almost as designers of the game, where they're contributing so critically to what the eventual game is, so that we do give ourselves the best chance at launch.
So yeah, that makes sense. You've got a number of factors going into it, but also as you're building the game, the community is being built when you bring in gamers to experience it. Because if they have a good initial experience, they're going to continue to talk about it and gain some traction there as well too. So,
well, yes, they're not only are they helping us promote the game with their friends,
mm-hmm.
word of mouth and other things that they do, or maybe they're streamers and they have kind of a one-to-many relationship with their friends, their fans, their own community, but they're helping shape what the game is. We're not just giving them a test drive of a vehicle that's going to be on streets in a month and that's what it is, right? The game is evolving based on the feedback. And I know you do a lot with data, customer data from a marketing standpoint. That's the same thing. This is data that's helping us not shape our message, right? But it's more about shaping what the end product is and what the end game is. And that, I mean, launch isn't the end, right?
Yeah.
And it's not, I used to think about launch as just the beginning. The truth is launch is not completely the beginning, because we've started pre-launch. So if you consider maybe the, private alphas or the public alphas as kind of the beginning of really what this game and what this world, but what this game becomes over time. And it is very much a relationship with players. This is a live service game. Not all games today are live service, but many of them are. But a live service, it's not us with a microphone telling everybody this is this and you're going to love this and this is what the game is. It's much more of a community in the truest sense of the word, in that we're listening to their feedback, we're listening to their response, we're watching how they play. So they may say one thing, but they play in another way, or vice
mm-hmm.
versa. And so all of that, it's almost like if you had a person come into your restaurant and come back into the kitchen, right, and say, well, I like this, or I like that, or I like this other thing. Then we say, okay, that's great, thanks. Go sit down. Here's a glass of wine. We're going to get back to work based on your feedback and your thoughts. So it's definitely different than how we made games when I first started in the industry. So
mm-hmm.
and it's much the better. We are much better at making games, because that gamers are a part of that. Our audience is a part of that process, and we make better games because of it.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me when we were working on Cars.com and we did a beta, and we had people come in, we had kids come in, and they would give feedback, and they try and make some updates to the game or some direction, or like testing filters. So I got in trouble for testing filters there because I didn't realize they weren't at that point. But it helped make it and shape it, and then they went back and they talked, because the big thing community, I was supporting marketing as business intelligence, so we were looking at gameplay, right? We were
Yeah.
trying to figure out how do we get subscriber numbers out, how do we get average time in game up, how do we get how do we get them to share it? Um, all of it goes into play, right? And like that phase of, okay, we're going to start building this community. Let's put some teasers out there. Let's get some awareness in different communities. To now it's a get. Now you got a 5-second gift. Now you've got a minute trailer of potential gameplay. You've got images going out showing cool shots. Like I remember Star Wars game that was coming out, and they had all these cool shots of the different spacecraft that were going to be fighting in the game. And then I'm sure they were testing as well too until the launch comes, right? And everybody's waiting for the launch. And I've seen different types of launches where I don't know with online and how you're at, or with console, it was like there's only so many games you go get for console, right?
Yeah.
Or PC. And now because it's online, it's like, oh, we can only let so many people in because our servers can only handle so much. I've seen people do a limited release that way, and it's a lot of it's pretty cool. And I love the gaming industry because working with a lot of professional service stuff, I come back to us and I see more of the creativity and the fun that I used to love being a part of in those launches and being a gamer and doing all that stuff. So really cool. So if someone's listening right now who's looking to scale their game, right? What's one piece of advice you wish you had back then, or if you were starting now, that you now know of?
Interesting question. So as we let me take it in the context of a specific game, and even more specifically, a brand new IP. So if you are starting before launch, let's wait, like scaling the community. Let's wait for that because there's some critical things you need to get done before you can actually build the game. My friend and I, he had this great idea. I really liked the idea. His name's Emmanuel. He's a great game director for this game. He had an idea, but to scale that as far as actually building the game, means you need great people to be involved. We all have mortgages, we all have rent, we all have food we need to put on the table. So no one, it's hard to work for free. We're
Yeah.
not back in college or living in our parents' garage anymore. You've got to find great partners that believe in the vision and can help support you from a funding standpoint, and also other partners, which we'll talk about in a second, bring more than funding, but also bring their own expertise and their skill set. So from a scaling standpoint, we would not be where we are today, the size of our team and the size of our ambitions and the size of our game already, even today, without our great partners at Sisu. They're a venture capitalist up in Northern Europe. They're amazing. NCSoft is a great investor and partner of ours. Also, not just providing cash to help us scale our team, but also working alongside us in bringing it to market. We can talk about more. Great meetings and discussions with them every week, which is great. And also 1AM Gaming has also been a critical partner of ours. One of the key people on their team I worked with in the past at Activision, guy named Dan Bunting, and he's been great and brought us in front of Gregory Milken, one of their key partners and leaders there. We wouldn't be able to scale our ambitions without those partners, those investors, and other investors that have joined on this journey with this vision. And so that's kind of the first spark to create the flame of scaling the game and being able to build the game we want to build. Kind of the next part of this that also happens in parallel is partnering with the right people. If you want to do this all on your own, it's going to be very hard to scale. And so we've got great partners in Amazon with AWS, right? You mentioned servers, and that could create, if your game is extremely popular, you still want that experience of connecting. In this case, our game is an online game, connecting to the game. You want that experience to be seamless. Well, we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place to support that. AWS is great with that, and Pragma is another partner that helps us from a back-end services standpoint. These are all companies you can look up online, but Eden at Pragma and his team are great. And Petrol is great. They're a marketing and advertising and PR company that's been around for 20 plus years. They've worked on all the biggest IP in the world, whether it's Doom, whether it's Call of Duty, whether it's kind of everything in between. And not just shooters. They've worked on a lot of action, adventure, and RPGs and other games too. But they, you made a couple references to putting content up from a marketing standpoint, trying to increase subscriptions or increase usage or increase daily active users or monthly active users or concurrent users or whatever the kind of metrics we want to talk about. And Petrol, our partners there, are amazing at that and understanding that side of the business, but really granularly. And they're really critical. Last year when we announced our game a year ago, they were a critical part of that, getting it in front of the right players, say users, but potential customers, potential players, getting it in front of people to see if it is interesting there, our concept and our world is interesting. So they played a critical part there, and they're also a critical part of supporting us in creating our trailer and sharing our trailer, the gameplay reveal trailer that we're planning to do in the as kind of our next big public beat. So as far as scaling a game idea, that's that kind of the process, and you will not, in our case, we would not have had the success to be able to get to where we are today. We have not launched yet. We still have a long road ahead and a great roadmap of work that we're doing and content that we're building and the features that we're putting into this game, which we're really excited about. But we wouldn't be able to be where we are today without the partners and the investors that we've met and that have joined us on this journey. And that have supported us and helped us and always give us really good feedback along the way. And then as we go forward, I talked about kind of the PR beats that we have to tell more about this world and the values of that world and the experience that you'll have as a player in that world, but then also bringing players on board. So we're scaling up our community by inviting people in to play the alphas and in to play the betas, and then join us on our journey toward a 1.0 launch. And then once we scale, how we scale from the 1.0 launch is we continue to listen to players and improve the game. We get feedback, and like for content beats, we'll get feedback that they like these gifts or they don't like these gifts, or they like hearing more about this. They don't seem to resonate. These content pieces don't seem to resonate as much. But for us, we're taking all that feedback and actually making the product different and changing and evolving the product once it's out. So that's how we scale. Again, 20 years ago, we couldn't do that. We'd kind of box and docs, release a product at Walmart, and then 2 years later release another one, right? Or if it's a sport, you kind of sports game, you need to release every season, right? So, but now we can actually listen to players and like we talked about earlier, and watch how they're playing, see how they're playing, look at the data and the analytics there, and that's how we scale and grow. And then also, not just bring them on board from a they're playing our game and they're enjoying it, or we can look at metrics on when are we losing players over the course of 24 hours or 7 days or 30 days? We can look at that kind of data and kind of get a sense for that and see how, take that data in and say, okay, what are we going to do to improve this, and have our creative discussions on our side. But then also, that's just bringing them on board from a day-to-day standpoint and what the actual gameplay experience is, but also being really open and visible and transparent with them about what our roadmap is and what our future is, to say, hey, it's safe for you to invest in us, invest your time with us, because we're here for the long haul. We're here for, we're going to be here. There's a lot of games that some games aren't as successful, and that's a challenge. That's a whole other story about, we could theorize on why. But there's many other games, live service games, multiplayer games, PvP and PvE games that launched a year ago and their player base is still really strong, or launched 5 years ago and their player base is still really strong, or even further back, right? PUBG is very, very successful. Rainbow Six is very successal. Call of Duty is very successful, though they release a new update each year, but Warzone kind of has now taken on its own life and continues in kind of an evergreen way. So how we scale, to your question, once after we've launched, is we listen really acutely to how players are playing our game, where their pain points and friction points are, but what they're really enjoying. We watch how they play, we get the metrics, and we hear the feedback. And then we are transparent with them about, hey, this is what's coming next. This is what's coming next down the pipeline. And game development is hard, right? We don't say like, this is going to come in exactly 3 months, and it's always perfectly we hit that date, right? As game developers, as a general rule of thumb. But the important part, the specific data isn't always the critical piece. The important thing is, hey, this is what we're doing. This is new content. This is new gameplay. This is new features. These are new experiences in this world that we are working on, that we're working towards for you as players. And so our hope and what typically happens is that you build trust with players when you execute on that roadmap and on that pipeline, and um, they feel safer to kind of come on board alongside and join you. And we have, last point here is we as I'm sure you're well aware, there is a network effect with our type of game that we're making, and that when there's more players, it is more fun, right?
Mm.
Our lobbies, well, we haven't talked about that. It's not like a PUBG 100 people kind of lobby in our matches, but when it's faster to find matches, when you can find matches in your time zone with low ping and a better experience, a smoother experience for you, that's better. It's better for our game. And time zones are different, right? So this is an international game, a worldwide game, and so we want players to be able to find other players. You can not only play with your friends, but you can meet new friends in our game, and we want you to be able to have a great, seamless, cohesive, smooth experience wherever you are on the planet and whatever time of day you are wanting to.
Awesome. And where can people connect with you or find out more about what you're doing?
EmptyVessel.io is our website, and that is
Awesome.
the best place for us. Whenever we kind of do a new beat, we share it there. That's probably the best. We've got other socials. We don't, like I said, we haven't set up our Discord yet. We will set it up very soon, coming soon. We do have X and other sites, but again, our website. Whenever there's kind of a big beat, there's a new trailer, there's some new conversations that we're having, some new information that we're sharing about the game. That's a good place to start. And then you can launch off to our Twitters and to
Yeah.
whatever else.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time.
Good seeing you again, Jason. Take care. Go Disney. Disney alumni. Thanks, Jason.